Good morning and welcome to Vin Advisor. I'm Jim Dykstra. It's my pleasure to answer a couple of questions here once in a while. And today I start with my favorite, which is, why is it so hard to buy a car? And that's really become a secondary question too, which is, why can't I buy a car online? Pretty reasonable question in today's market. And it's as simple as what you're seeing on the slide right now, which is because dealers price people, they don't price products. When I say that to people, they kind of get a quizzical look and say, what does that even really mean? So let's just kind of take a three-step approach here. Let's take a look at why you should be able to buy a car online today, what getting priced looks like, and I'll use a different example, and then what it looks like to get priced in a dealership. So if you decided to kind of have a big day and do everything, you could jump online, you could do your taxes today, get a rapid advance dropped into your checking account, invest a couple $1,000s online with E-Trade. You could sit and binge watch on Netflix for 2 hours. Let's say you want to watch Girls or Homeland or whatever you want to do. Call a couple of your friends, head to San Francisco, and en route, while you're in the car on an app, you can book a hotel room, you can buy some tickets to see Justin Timberlake. Once you get there, you can make dinner reservations online, whether on an app or on your laptop. Go have a great meal. At the end, you split the check, use Venmo to share money with a couple of your friends. And as Justin Timberlake walks on stage, you shout to the world via Twitter, I'm having a better night than you are. So you can do all those things online, and yet the big fail is, why can't you just buy a car, a new Hyundai or a used Hyundai online? It should be easier than that. And the answer is it should. If a dealer was sitting here, they'd tell you, well, boy, it's really much more complex than you know. It's hard to buy a car. It's a very complex transaction, and that is absolutely the truth. It's probably the most complex transaction most consumers will have to endure, and they'll do it every 4 or 5 years. But what it's not is more complex than investing, banking, and not even near as complex as preparing and filing income taxes for a federal return in 50 states. So the reason you can't buy a car is not because dealers can't do it, it's because they don't want to do it. It's their prerogative. We'll show you a path to get you ready to do that, though. So what would it look like to get priced, not at a dealership, we'll get to that in a second, but say you went to McDonald's and a dealer owned it, and he decided that he's going to change the pricing model, and he's going to price people just like he does at the dealership. When you drove up to the drive-through menu, it looked the same. Microphone, menu, nothing would really look the same until you got close, and then you realize, wow, there's no prices on this menu. That's interesting. Nice girl would answer the microphone and say, welcome to McDonald's, how can I help you? I'd like a number 4 value meal, great. And instead of showing your total due and say, is that order correct and is that the correct purchase amount? She'd say, just please pull forward. And when you pulled forward, that's when they'd price you. And instead of just asking you for a certain amount of money, then ask you some questions. Hey, that's a nice car. Do you own it? How many kids do you have? That's a nice suit. Fits you pretty good. Is that custom made? Because they're trying to determine whether they can get $8 or $10 or $12 for the meal that you've just ordered. So in other words, they don't just price the meal at one price their product. They price people. Because today, we really should be able to shop, compare, and price products so we know exactly what we're getting. So let's take a look at a dealership. If you've been to buy a car, whether it was yesterday, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, you've probably seen something that looked like this. It might have been on a clean sheet of paper, on the back of some other trade appraisal or buyer's order or anything else. But you basically wind up looking at 4 squares on a piece of paper, and it's the right way to start, to be honest with you, because it's the 4 components of the transaction. What car am I purchasing? What's the asking price or MSRP on a new car? What's the potential discount? I got a trade-in, what's that worth? I don't know, but what's it worth? How much money am I going to put down? A good salesperson here would say something like, you know, most people put at least 10% down. Were you thinking 10, 15, or 20? What would be best for you? Try to narrow the range, get a better idea of what you're willing to invest in the car. And then the big kicker is the monthly payment, because 85% of the people who buy cars today are looking for a monthly payment. So it's about budget. And particularly as the business changes and more and more people think about less and less about owning a car and more about how to use cars and usage. And the next thing you know, you kind of give them a range of 300 to 350. Ask you which one of those 4 corners is most important. Circle it and you'd say, I'll be right back. I just got to talk to the manager. And when the salesperson picks up that piece of paper and walks in to see the manager, they're going to price you. Again, is it the best way to do it today? No. Is it a terrible, horrible thing? Absolutely not. I can tell you from experience, dealers are an incredibly important part of our communities. No greater tax revenue generators than dealers. They employ a lot of people, they spend a lot of money, do a lot of philanthropic things you're not even aware of. But as great as all those things are, and that the system can work better and it can work more efficiently for all of us. So here's what pricing people costs you. In 2014, the average new car dealer, a Toyota or Ford or Chevy dealer, made $1 million in net profit, and trust me, they earned every dollar of it and more. Because whatever a dealer can make in 1 year, he can lose twice that in 6 months. It's a really tough business. That said, there's a lot of pain being passed around because of the inefficiencies of the business, because they haven't moved online to an online purchase experience. Average salesperson turnover in those same dealerships. Dealer made $1 million, but 7 out of 10 of his or her salespeople didn't make it from from January 1st to December 31st. Imagine if you worked at a group of 10 people, that each January you knew there was only going to be 3 of you left at the end of the year. How inefficient would that be to whatever business you either own or work in today? Doesn't really matter. The cost to us as consumers, a company called Driving Sales calculated it, it's at least $100 a car for every car that was purchased in 2014. That's really why we formed VinAdvisor, to give you an advocate and to help make sure that consumers are well represented and well prepared when they go to buy a car, because it just shouldn't be that hard to buy a car. And you're going to be able to buy a car online this year in 2016 with the help of VinAdvisor.